So what I wanted to use this video for was just to compare or contrast the difference between two big bore kits out there. This is for a particular bike is the CT70 Honda. We have a manufacturer or supplier called TBParts, 88cc kit. And then I have CHP Motorsports out of Texas. This is their 88cc kit. I'm just going to kind of compare the cylinder heads, the jug, and other components that come with the kit, compare and contrast them. So in this clip you can see I'm on TBParts.com website. This is the Racehead 88cc kit that they packaged together for you. It's $359. That includes shipping, no tax if you're out of the state. I think they ship out of, I remember it's New Jersey or somewhere around there on the East Coast. But it's a Racehead roller bearing cam. Comes with their 20mm kind of knockoff carb. An aluminum jug. You get the gasket kits, some jets, pretty much everything you need to bolt together the top end. And in this clip, we'll look at CHP Motorsports out of Texas. This is their top end kit, 88cc. Includes the cylinder head, the jug, all the valve train, gaskets. They use a stock style carb. Their claim is, well, their angle is that they're providing you with a top end performance kit that uses a stock style carburetor in appearance with some rejetting, and you're able to, with the intake manifold, that you reuse your own, and then it connects into the airbox, factory airbox, as opposed to TBParts, which provides you with a canted intake manifold, larger, more performance oriented style carburetor, and then like a foam air filter that comes off to the side. And then their price is $398.59, and then I know they're shipping additional at CHP. Usually probably, I don't know, I'd guess $15 to get it shipped out. So one of the other notable differences with T-Bolt or TBParts kit is that they recommend or even require a higher volume oil pump, and then they also require you to drill out the oil orifice to 2mm. So that's an additional $30 on top of the $359 that you would have to add to the kit to make it complete. Now CHP claims that the oil pump is factory oil pump is sufficient, so there's no additional requirement for a high volume oil pump with their kit or required drilling of the orifice on the case. So first we'll look, just take a look at the comparison between the carburetors from each kit. On the left we have the TBParts carburetor, and then on the right is a CHP kit. So TBParts comes with a 20mm carb. You measure that at the connection to the intake tube. So we're right at about 20mm quick reading on that port. It's a PZ20 replica. You can find these pretty much on Amazon or eBay any day. This one is made by Shingway. Comes with their own performance air filter, a jet kit with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 main jets that you can tune on, intake tube, a heat shield shroud, some hardware, gaskets, drain vent, and then the CHP comes with a stock style air filter replacement for your stock airbox, a number 65 jet. I'm not sure what jetting's in the original knockoff. This is a replica of the original key-in carb on the CT70, CHP's casting. I've used these before. Good carb. You can use the original key-in jetting, so the casting is appropriate for original parts and pieces. So it's a good replica carb. And then your additional slide and cap. And then this carb is just like the original, is a 16mm carb. So we got a 20mm carb versus 16mm carb. 20mm with the TBParts, 16 with the CHP. Alright, so let's look at the cylinder heads. They're aluminum cylinder heads. I have no clue what the alloy content is of the aluminum castings, but as far as the finish goes, I would say they're pretty similar in quality. You can note that this one on the left is the TBParts. It does have some more prominent finning for cooling. Just their fins are a little bit longer than what CHP has on. Just some more dominant area over here to radiate some of the heat off of it. And then on the top area, on the intake port area, you got just some larger fins. Machining looks of quality. They both come assembled with the valves and springs, keepers and everything installed. Again, machining looks of similar quality. And exhaust ports are pretty much, actually the CHP looks a little more round in quality than the casting of the TBParts in that area. The cam journals are of the same size. The journal for the big end of the cam, it's smooth to touch, but I see a lot of machining marks on the CHP as opposed to the more polished finish on the TBParts on the big end of the roller bearing on the cam journal. Just a quick note on CHP's website, on their cylinder head, they claim the smaller fins are to replicate the OEM look of the original cylinder head, so I just wanted to clarify that. So TBParts cylinder head, CHP cylinder head, valves, intake and exhaust on CHP. CHP claims on the exhaust valve that's 23, but I'm measuring a 22 millimeter valve. Intake valve is 25. TBParts is 25 in intake and 22, so I'm going to say they're the same size valves. The dome here on the cylinder, the deep portion of the dome would definitely have more cc's on the CHP as opposed to the smaller portion of the dome on the TBParts. I don't know anything about compression ratio on the TBParts setup. Can't find anything on the web, but CHP claims it's a 10.7 to 1 ratio. So if we're looking at the intake port, this port is about 25 millimeters in size, and it continues in size all the way down to the intake valve. This is actually a smaller port on the TBParts. It's about a 21 millimeter port, where it starts off a little bit bigger, but it quickly tapers down into about 21 millimeter port. And port design is pretty drastically different between the two. Exhaust ports on the CHP, you got a 19.75 millimeter port, and then roughly roughly the same thing, or 20 millimeters on the TBParts, kind of out of round. As far as the port design, they're pretty similar in design for the exhaust ports. I don't know the volumes or anything like that, but just trying to do my best to compare them to you guys. As far as spark plugs go, they both take the standard 10 millimeter spark plug. I use the NGK's C7s. So we'll look at the camshaft and the rocker arms. These cylinder heads come partially assembled. The valves are in with the springs, but you're going to have to insert your roller cams, roller bearing cams, rocker arms, rocker arm pins, and you know, the side cover cam sprocket. So if we're looking at these camshafts, very similar looking in design. They use NTN bearings, at least on the big end. I don't see any bearing information really, other than Taiwan on the small bearing end of the camshaft. But I did mic out the lobes on each, as far as just to see the lift. And the CHP camshaft is ground with about a 1 millimeter lift larger on both the intake and exhaust lobes than what you get with the lift on the TBParts camshaft. I don't know the duration on either one of them, but they both claim longer duration than stock, of course. But the camshafts look of exact same quality. Now the rocker arms from each kit, they both come with these rocker arms that are stamped with the JX02, so casting. So I'm assuming it's coming from the same manufacturer. This cover is considerably larger than what you have for the cylinder head on the TBParts, but of similar casting quality. Again, they both come with all the same parts for you to complete the assembly of the cylinder head. So that will conclude the comparison to the cylinder heads. I wasn't really scientific about it. Just got some general measurements. It's not like when I was playing around with cars where you can get information on aftermarket race cylinder heads, port flowing, bench testing, a lot of information on camshafts and all sorts of different performance information. None of that's really available for these cylinder heads. So I don't know like what port design is better or what cylinder head flows better. Just able to give you a few measurements and kind of my best interpretation of the castings and what I see in front of me, but no scientific data to back it up. Alright, so we can look at the jugs or cylinders now. Alright, so right off the bat, they're both silver and they're aluminum alloy, as opposed to the OEM, which is a steel jug. You have your steel inserts here for the bore, but the outer shell is an aluminum alloy. The castings are exactly the same almost, so same amount of fins, same fin design, kind of same casting marks, same bore, 52 millimeter bore. TBParts on my right hand, or on your left, is going to be their little TB logo. CHP just has a box here with nothing on it. One notable difference between these is that this recessed cut here on this lower stud, head stud area, uses a seal. This is OEM style design right here, and CHP chose to keep it a solid, so that's a first for me. I guess I'm not going to be using an O-ring there. So the very similar, except for this casting difference right here. So the qualities, I would say, are basically the same. Alright, so now we're looking at the pistons. Both are an aluminum piston. The domes are slightly different design. Obviously they work with the cylinder head that's been manufactured for each piston kit. You get your relief for your spark plug. The intake on this TBParts valve relief is considerably smaller than what is relieved on the CHP piston. You got a really nice machined top here on the TBParts, and more rough casting here on the CHP piston. If you look at it from a skirt length, they're very similar in length. Much more material on the skirt design than what is on the CHP piston here on your right. You see a lot of relief valve or relief cuts there on the lower skirt. I did note that they both use the same ring setup. You get two rings, compression rings, and then your oil control ring is a 3-part ring. Same thing for both the kits. You get your new wrist pen and wrist pen clips in each kit. The wrist pens lined up to each other in comparison. The ringlands are in different locations on the piston design, so that's a little bit that's a different variation between the two pistons. But you know, aftermarket, don't really hear any complaints across the board on, you know, TBParts is kind of a pioneer in the market with their big bore kits, and CHP, this is actually the first time I've used it, so I haven't heard anything bad about their kits. So other than that, they're both an aluminum piston with a slight different design that works with their cylinder heads for their compression ratios. So these are like a few of the other items you get in the kit too. TBParts, you get your gasket kit. They give you a throttle cable for your carb. Won't work with the stock CT70 throttle, twist throttle. CHP, get your gasket kit. They do give you a plug, C7 HSA and GK plug, a nifty keychain, CT70 bike, and they also give you a front sprocket for your engine output shaft. So just doing a little quick internet sleuthing here. The TBW0189 is the camshaft that came with the kit, the 88 kit. This is their specs on the cam, so we can see what the lift is, intake lift and exhaust lift, and then the duration on it. So I think the CT or the CHP's version has about 1 millimeter lift on both intake and exhaust over this one. So if you want to get a little more aggressive cam, TBParts does sell what they call the race camshaft for their race head. It's the TBW0300C, and on this one you get a little more aggressive lift and duration across the board. So there's an option to get a little more aggressive camshaft for that TBParts kit. That's another $60 unless they do a swap out if you call them. I don't know if they would swap it for you, kind of a as an offer instead of taking the original camshaft. one more thing, circling back to the carb. So this is the like PZ20 style carb that TBParts sends with their kit. This is different than a standard CT70 carb, and what you're going to run into with this one is that it has one inlet port for your fuel line from your tank. Now your CT70 has a reserve and a regular port on the gas tank, so you have two lines that come in to the carburetor on a standard setup. And this is CHP's carb that they send you, and you can see that you get a petcock built into this carb, and you get two barbs, so it will take up your fuel lines from your stock gas tank just like stock bike does. And this one does not have that, so you don't even have a petcock. So what you have to do is take in the account that you need to mount a three-way petcock onto your frame to run the TBParts carburetor. So it's about 20 bucks more, a little bit more fumbling around, get it installed. So that's a plus for CHP, especially if you're trying to go to a stock setup, keep a stock setup. You know, the CHP is the way to go. Alright, so that's going to wrap up the comparison between the two kits. Just FYI, I do have a Facebook business page that I run. It's Vintage Honda Mini Restorations. You can find me on Facebook too, other than just YouTube. A lot of good content on this page, lots of photos, lots of projects and stuff. So check it out. Send me a message, like it, follow it, appreciate it. Thanks guys.